Hi, I'm Marie Hopkinson. Welcome back to the Chinese Medicine Podcast. Today we're going to be talking about winter and the season of winter, what we can do in our bodies to help us be more healthy in winter. So, look, there's a lot of things in Chinese medicine that are relating to keeping your body healthy, and also in that aspect of keeping you healthy, how are you going to treat your body in that very early illness kind of stage, that very stage where most people just think wouldn't consider themselves being sick. So, colds and flu.
I think I'm getting the black lung, Bob.
So that's one thing we're going to talk about in this little episode about how does Chinese medicine look at colds and flus? Can we do anything for people with colds and flus? Do you just need to write it out? Should you be taking herbs? Should you be getting acupuncture treatments? Should you not be going in and seeing your practitioner because you're sick? A lot of patients cancel appointments because they get a cold or a flu. It's been common over the years for me to see patients that they were having regular treatments with acupuncture, let's say for a back pain or something else, neck, any other problem, let's say, and then they got a cold or a flu symptoms and then they cancelled their appointment because they were sick. Now, I understand that patients don't want to pass on illnesses to their practitioner, and that's nice of you, but I'm around sick people all the time and sickness doesn't bother me. So if you've got a cold or a flu, it doesn't bother me if you come into the clinic. If you're well enough to come in, like I wouldn't want someone to be so much pain and shivering and cold and needing to be inside, like that might be a problem for you. You might not have anyone to take you to the clinic, or you might be like violently ill and vomiting and so unwell that you can't come in. That's not to say that Chinese medicine can't help you at that stage, but there's cases where you may just have to write it out in bed because you can't physically get there. So what can Chinese medicine do for colds and flus? Because we're coming into the flu season in where I'm living in Perth. Now it's coming into the flu season pretty quick at the moment. The weather suddenly changed to be very cold. The nights are getting cooler. It's raining at the moment. So you might be able to hear a bit of rain where I'm filming. It's a little bit rainy tonight. So what can we do? So one thing to note is that we don't claim to treat anything. That's the first thing. I'm not claiming that we can treat colds and flus, because the way that Chinese herbs work when you have a cold or a flu is they're functionally mobilizing your body's yang to be able to fight whatever's wrong with it. So particularly illnesses that come in from the outside. So in Chinese medicine, they really think a lot about cold damaging the body. So there's an entire textbook just written on that. It's called the Shang Han Lun. It's called Cold Damage textbook. It's Cold Damage book. And so what that concept is about is that we as human beings should be living in harmony with nature. And if we are living in harmony with nature, that textbook tells us that a person who lives in harmony with nature will still get sick. So it's a misconception to think that you're so healthy I'll never get sick. Getting sick with a cold or a flu doesn't mean you're unhealthy. But getting sick with a cold or a flu and it not going away for weeks and weeks, or for you to have a cough that lingers on for weeks and weeks, or for you to be sick afterwards, like for you to have like a post-viral fatigue syndrome or something like that, which can often lead to like chronic fatigue syndrome or other viruses in your body, or things that lingering health problems like earaches that just don't ever go. Those things aren't normal, and certainly that would be something that I would see very commonly in the clinic, because in the initial stage of getting sick with a cold or a flu, like I said, sometimes people they don't know that they can come in. They don't know that there's anything that can be done. And or quite often they just think, oh, my body will get rid of it. Now that could happen. So your body could just get rid of it by itself. And so when do you need to come in and see a Chinese medicine practitioner? Well, firstly, you want to see a herbalist that can offer you some kind of like powerful style of Chinese herbs in terms of raw herbs, or what I use sometimes is called raw herbs ground to powder. So these herbs behind me that you might be able to see are raw herbs, right? So what that means is, what's this one? Ginger root. So these herbs are the raw ingredients. Basically what that means is like that's the actual plant dried, sometimes with ginger we even use it fresh, like fresh ginger, and those herbs are then put into a pot and boiled up, and then you drink the liquid. Now most formulas for colds and flus need to be drunk like that, need to be taken like that. You can get the raw herbs ground down to a powder And then what happens is you mix that powder with a little bit of water, or sometimes put it on the stove and bring it to the boil and drink those herbs down. So that's the most effective way of using Chinese medicine in its original form. So if the formula was written out for you, like the practitioner saw you and said, oh, you need to take Guizhi Tang, it's not going to help you taking that formula as much, taking it as a pill. Now, no one really makes it like that anyway, or like, let's say, you needed Xiao Chai Hu Tang. So Xiao Chai Hu is the name of the formula, and little Chai Hu. So the name at the end of Tang means decoction or soup, right? So if it was meant to be taken as a pill, it would be called Wan, or it's meant to be taken as a powder, it would be called a San. And so it's very important in those stages. So sometimes people say, oh, I took Chinese medicine and it didn't work. Well, it's not sometimes that you've got the wrong formula. It's just that you took it in the wrong format. Like you might have taken Xiao Chai Hu Tang as a pill, and the style of the pills you've taken are so weak that they just can't do the job that needed to be done. Quite often now I've got another video that just talks about the format of herbs, and it's called What is Chinese Medicine? So I've go through granules and boiling up and all different kinds of styles of herbs in that video. So what I'm getting at is Chinese medicine can be very effective, but one thing is like Chinese herbs can be effective for colds and flus, but you need to take them in the proper format. My style of Chinese medicine practice is a classical pulse-based style of herbs. So what that means is you come in, we ask you some questions, what's wrong with you? We check your pulse, and then we will feel in your pulse what kind of herbs your body needs at that stage. And then we'll ask you some more questions based around the practitioner has a knowledge of like the formulas that those herbs are in. So let's talk about cinnamon. That's a really common Chinese herb that's used for colds and flus. So the practitioner might feel that you need cinnamon from your pulse. Now that sounds a bit like woo-woo mysticism, but it's not. There is a specific way of being able to feel it. It's not like, oh, I get a mystical message from the universe telling me that. It's a particular way that your pulse feels. And so in Chinese medicine, we have different qualities. Like we have tight and wiry. We have like weak and forceful kind of pulses. You have like the shape of the pulse can change, the depth of the pulse can change, and all that sort of stuff. And so those intricate details that have changed about the pulse is actually what lets us know like there's a certain combination, almost like a lock and key sort of thing. You feel this certain combination of pulse, and that tells us that your body needs that particular herb. Now, not every style of Chinese medicine does work like that, but the style I practice is just based. That's how it is. And so then we would think, okay, well, what formulas have those herbs in them that we feel in your pulse? And then it's based around questioning you, as in what symptoms you have, to make sure that we get the right formula. We can't just give you a formula based on your pulse with no information that the patient says, because it's impossible. It's like it's not a psychic mystical thing that we give the formulas out like that. So it's very, very systematic, okay? And a lot of people criticize Chinese medicine for not being scientific, but it is highly scientific. It's highly methodical. It's based on a strong theoretical understanding. That theory has been tested out through time. And that's a hypothesis that's been tested. It's been proven through the continuous use. It's just not a common style of science, I guess, now. People want a randomized control trial, and that's one way of testing, but there's also other ways of testing and other ways of obtaining scientific evidence. So we do have plenty of scientific evidence. It's just what's called empirical evidence, and that's because if 5 people came to me tomorrow with sinusitis, that's an inflammation in their sinuses, and that's a very common complication that happens after you get a cold or a flu. And so let's say 2 or 3 weeks later, you've still got these symptoms lingering on. You're like, oh, Marie, my face is all puffy and it really hurts, and I've got this sort of feel like there's some phlegm, but it won't come out, and it's all stuck and it's painful. And often people get headaches up here. I get headaches here or headaches here, and pain, and they're very uncomfortable. It's very stuffy and uncomfortable. It's not a one size fits all. There are several common formulas we would use, but it's not a one size fits all. And sometimes there might be commonalities within those herbal formulas that might make it one formula will get it exactly right for that person, and then the other formula might get it sort of right. So they get some result, they don't get no result. But then there can be some formulas that could be used for sinusitis if the patient had the right pulse for it. And they wouldn't be as common, but you wouldn't just give it out. Like it's not a symptom based thing. So you can't just go, it's almost impossible to get Chinese medicine off the shelf, like over the counter, and find something that's going to work for you in that way. Because there's so many different reasons why people have the symptoms they have is based around, the constitution, the food they eat, all those things. And Western medicine doesn't take any of that stuff into consideration in terms of how an illness progresses. They just think that illness, okay, is due to this particular virus and your body needs to fight that virus, and we'll give you this medicine to help it fight that or suppress a certain part of the fighting process if that's needed for something. Or they might say, we'll give you this medication to ease the symptoms so that you don't feel uncomfortable, because that's, at the end of the day, patients want to feel better. And so if they just take a medicine that alleviates the pain, but that doesn't necessarily treat or cure or fix the problem that's there. So getting back to winter and cold and flus, I would say a big aspect in Chinese medicine is the way in which the herbs are given to you. Now you can also use granules, and I use a lot of granules in my practice, but in colds and flus, if you're getting it in the first week or so, and you've got those really acute kind of problems, you either need to take a lot of granules. Like I've been sick with a cold or a flu before, and I've been traveling, and I've used granules, and I've been quite happy with how it worked out. It was better than not taking any herbs at all. But I know that boiling up herbs work much faster, which is what I'm talking about, these like the raw herbs, and then like either boiling them or using ground powder herbs and slightly boiling them on the stove, something like that. Bulk herbs is what most people call them. How can you help yourself in winter? How can you be healthier in winter? Winter's a really a season where often, yes, we get sick with colds and flus, and I can't encourage people enough that if they want to get better quickly, then go and see your practitioner and get that individual diagnosis and see where exactly the practitioner will be able to see where they can help you, what they can help you with. Acupuncture is very good at alleviating pain-related symptoms that often are associated. So let's say, go back to the sinusitis situation. If you have a lot of pain, acupuncture can relieve that pain without giving you any drugs and things like that in that process. But a Chinese medicine practitioner is always looking at what is the root of the cause of this problem, and so that we can treat that root, and it basically assists your body's function to kind of function better and function the best that it can. That's what we want to see happen for people. And so as your body functions the best it can, so that's why I'm saying you could just stay at home and sleep, and or take a few days off, or try to rest your body, and then you may well just recover on your own, because our body has the functional ability to do that. So I'm not trying to solicit people to take on the burden of unnecessary treatment, but I do know that Chinese herbs work very good for colds and flus if you take them straight away, and you usually lessen the amount of time that you need to take the herbs for anyway. Whereas if you wait until you're very sick, or you've got these complicated situations from it, then you often need to take herbs for a lot longer. The whole textbook of the Shang Han Lun, the Damage by Cold book, it's all about how if you don't treat your body properly at a certain stage, then this is what happens. Or you take the wrong treatment, like there's a lot of mistreatment formulas in there. So it would be like, the patient tried to induce a sweat, and they did this particular treatment, and that made them sweat way too much, and now they're really sick, and then this is the formula you need to give them. And so that tells us that, there can be, even though it's considered like such a minor issue, I guess, by our society, and maybe that's because Western medicine, one is that there's no treatment for it. Like there's no treatment for the common cold. There's no cure for the common cold, right? There are various things that could lessen the effect of it, but actually a lot of the cold and flu medicines that lessen the effects of colds, like Sudafed based medicines, they are formulated from Chinese herbs. Like the Sudafed used to be formulated from derivatives of ma huang, and so that herb in itself is a commonly used herb in Chinese medicine. Like classically in Chinese medicine, we don't use it in Australia because it's not it's like a restricted substance. But because of its abuse, basically, because people have abused it for weight loss things. But so Ma Huang's job is to make you help you create a sweat for someone who can't sweat, or they're so weak that they sweat easily. They wouldn't need Ma Huang. But if someone's like can't sweat at all, and they're very, very cold, and their pores are so tight and they're freezing. Like if you've ever had a cold or a flu and you've started off with the shivers and very cold, you might not be able to sweat, and you've been so cold, then that's generally what that herb does. Now, that brings me to the next point of how do we look at treating colds and flus in Chinese medicine. And if we look at how we do it in herbs, it'll help you understand how you can do it in foods for yourself at home. Now, I just want to say that foods are good if you're doing it in the first 1 or 2 days of being sick, or the first half a day of being sick. Like you may be able to catch it in time, but if you don't, then again, go and see a practitioner and get them to give you the proper herbs made up for you, like that specifically balanced formula. So when you get sick with a cold, cold comes into your body, and it usually invades in your body in the neck first, the back of your head. That's the Tai Yang area of your body, the Tai Yang channels. And so what happens is cold contracts. And so you feel cold, as in when people are cold, they rug up, they feel chilly. They might actually have the shivers, and they might feel like, I want to put more clothes on. So that's the first symptom that you might notice, that you just feel more cold than usual. Now, if you have a nice heated place that you, like, let's say you have a nice heated workplace, and you think, why am I so cold? Like, I really feel the cold. Like, you want to put more jackets on, and you look around the room and everyone doesn't have their jacket on. That's different to like being in a freezing place and lots of people are putting jackets on everywhere.
With his jacket off, jacket on, jacket off, jacket on, jacket.
Or just being too cold because you don't have enough clothes to cope with the environment. So getting sick with these kinds of illnesses, with cold and flu illnesses, is an inability of our body to cope with the environment. So the environment's cold and somehow it invaded you because there was like a little chink in your armor in a way, and it kind of got in and made you and caused that contraction. And so your body contracts, and so what happens is the muscles and the tendons kind of get tight, and that causes the body aches, and you feel like, some people feel shivers and body aches, and often a tight back of the neck. It might not even be a headache yet, it might just be a tight back of the neck, and that'd be the first day. And quite often this is really accompanied by just a feeling of tiredness. So you just like a feeling of unusual tiredness. So it's hard for people to tell, I guess, if they're constantly tired anyway. But if you're just more unusually tired than you normally would be, and you also feel cold, then the first thing I would do is go and grab something pungent to eat, right? So pungent is what we use in herbs to open the pores, basically make you sweat. So in Chinese herbal medicine, we use herbs like ginger. The one I just showed you is a dried ginger. So normally we use the fresh ginger. Now you can just go down to your local supermarket and buy some fresh ginger. Just keep a little knob of fresh ginger in your fridge in case this happens. And just buy one every couple of weeks or however long it can last. It can last about a week and a half in the fridge, depends on what kind of fridge you've got. And then you would just cut up like about 5 slices of that fresh ginger with a little bit of sugar. So a little bit of a teaspoon of honey is good, or a teaspoon of brown sugar. So you need that sweet flavor in there to kind of help it work. And then steep that in some hot water. If you can, put it on the stove and just bring it to the boil a little bit so it gets as much of that ginger flavor out of it as you can. And you can sip on that tea. So drink a whole cup of that tea, and then if you still don't feel warm, then drink another cup of that tea. And then you could have something small to eat, and especially something that's got a lot of pungent flavor in it. So you could have a curry. Now, a lot of people know this because they're just like, these are like how home remedies kind of start. You could have a little bit of curry. You could have spring onions. So that's good, and that's also a pungent flavor, but it's not really a hot pungent flavor. It doesn't do a lot in terms of like making you hot so that then you have to sweat. And that's really what you want to do. Now, when you're doing this, you don't want to be exposed. Like, you don't want to take your jackets off. You want to keep yourself warm. Put another blanket on if you're at home. Might look a bit weird sitting at your desk at work with a blanket over your head. But keep yourself as warm as you can. And then the job is of the herbs that you've taken, the ginger or the cinnamon drink or the curry that you've had, is to kind of make your body warmer inside. It increases your heart rate a little bit, and so that then your body has to sweat. Now, a lot of people use also sweating from exercise to treat colds and flus. Is this a good thing or is it not a good thing? I've seen people on Facebook recently, just friends of mine that I've noticed, put this question like, oh, I've got a cold, what do I do? And someone said, oh, go to the gym and sweat it out. Now, there is a little bit of wisdom in that, right? Just because the thing I just said to you about, yes, okay, if you can make yourself warm and sweat a little bit, then that would be the treatment in Chinese medicine. So you're kind of replicating that with foods, or herbs that, or part of the formula. So so part of the herbal formula. But when you do this at the gym, there's two other things that happen. One is you are exercising, so you're expending energy. So if you just take the herbal formula, or you take a cup of ginger drink, then you're not really expending any energy. You're just kind of relaxing and, conserving your energy. Whereas if you go to the gym to get up a sweat, then you've expended a bit of energy, and that might just push you a bit too much over the edge and make it harder to recover. The second thing is you may sweat so much that you can't stop sweating enough. Like, you can't stop sweating quick enough, and that's a big problem with once you start sweating. If a person then sweats too much, then it depletes them, and especially if they're getting sick already. And then the third thing about going to the gym is when you exercise, and where do you go after that place of exercise? So you go into the gym, it's nice and warm in there, you warm up, you do your exercise. Now this could be when you've got a cold or a flu, or just at any time. And then, like, let's say you're in a hurry. I see tons of people do this in the gym. They finish, they don't have a shower, they just run out to their car and go in the car. Now, if it's freezing, if it's very cold outside, so you've gone from a warm environment and you've got all this sweat on your skin, you've got your pores open, and a lot of people don't even put like a jumper on. They just run to their car, or they walk to their car, or something like that. And then what can happen is the environment has got, like, the pores of your body are like this gate saying, don't penetrate, don't come in. Well, the pores are open, so the gate's open, and then the cold can kind of come in very easily through that, and then you can get even sicker if you already were a bit sick, or you can just you can get sick. And you can get sick also just from in that aspect. The cold can get into the muscle, and you can actually get like a wry neck, you can get like a pulled neck, or you can get a sore shoulder. So I don't know if you've ever woken up in the mornings. This happens a lot in summertime, actually, where people wake up with a stiff neck because they've been sleeping in the wind and sleeping with the fan on, they sleep with the window open, and the wind has come in and gotten onto their neck. So protecting yourself from the wind is a big one in Chinese medicine. So if you can wear a scarf, you can kind of protect yourself from the wind. That will help immensely to kind of prevent getting sick or getting worse when you're kind of a little bit sick and you don't want to get more sick, and you need to stay away from the wind. It's human nature that we do that, but then it's also Western society that kind of says, oh no, you must soldier on, you must work harder, and don't take any time off, and just keep going.
I got bronchitis. Ain't nobody got time for that.
And so then you don't give your body any chance to relax or to rest, and so then it can sometimes get worse. So I hope these tips have been helpful to you. I can't stress enough the importance of coming to a Chinese herbalist to get that proper diagnosis, so that you can get the right herbs exactly for that condition. And there's plenty of evidence-based medicine to back up the use of Chinese herbal medicine for cold and flus. And this is dating right back to the Han dynasty, and these are formulas like that we still use today. It's like the oldest amount of evidence that we have to treat those things. So these are formulas that we would use, like that have been sort of tried, tested, and true, I would say. That, and we're not modifying them and changing them up just willy-nilly. In my practice, like I'm very strict in terms of how I prescribe those formulas. So you're getting basically the formulas that were meant to be prescribed at that exact time frame, based on that ancient wisdom since the Han dynasty times. So if you've got a comment, you want to put a comment in the comments below, do that. If you're not a subscriber already to the channel, then click that subscribe button below. And I'd like to see you back again on the next video. Thanks for sharing your health journey with me, and allowing me to share some of my knowledge and wisdom and ideas with you about Chinese medicine. I hope that it's helpful to you. And thank you so much for watching.